Okay, there we go. First service recorded on the iPhone. I want to take note of that. Anyways, so the story is irrelevant to the message, but I've been an iPhone hater for years, and I recently bashed my brother and his wife, telling them that they were crazy and the Galaxies were where it's at. But then having straight talk, their phones are kind of cheap, and I got tired of having a cheap phone, so I said, I'm going to try out an iPhone. And so now I've been FaceTiming Troy all week because I can, and I send Melanie about 16 gifts a day. She's ready to probably punch me in the face, but... So anyways, on to the sermon. It's a very simple message today. It's actually inspired by a song we're going to listen to afterwards. It's called Dream Small. And I know that might seem irrelevant because we want to talk about dreaming big and everything, but trust me, there's a point behind it. Quote from Todd Gunn, where he wrote a book called... I forget what it's called. Something about leadership, but it's a really good story. He said, greatness begins with a simple contribution to the well-being of one another. Listen more attentively, smile more broadly, and love more actively to the person God put in your path today. And so to get to where we're going to be in the book of Ruth. Kind of skim over some of it, but we're really going to be in Ruth chapter 2, 8 through 18. But just for a little bit of background, basically, well, 3 people in this room shouldn't answer this question directly, but imagine living your life with your mother-in-law. Think about how crazy that is, that if it be your husband is gone and you're choosing that you're going to stay with your mother-in-law. Imagine, would anybody willingly do that? Anybody?
I'm waiting for the answer.
No, I'm gone. Would you live with my mother? That's the question.
Does the other person have to be gone in order for this to happen?
No. You can even just do it.
I live with my mother.
Yeah, we lived with Lori's parents.
Yeah, I would.
Okay.
All right. There was some thought.
Good answer.
I figured.
But just for the background text, so Naomi, her husband died, and she originally had 2 sons, and then both of them passed. So then it left Ruth and one other daughter-in-law. And they were in Moab, and there was famine striking, so they were going to make their way back to the Holy Land so they could get some, because they heard that the Lord was blessing them with food at the point. And things were kind of going, and then Naomi gave them an out. They said, if you don't want to follow me anymore, that's cool, I get it, basically, to put it in human terms. And one of the daughter-in-laws, she was like, all right, peace, I'm out of here. And then, Ruth was like, no, forget about it. She said, where you go, I go. Where you stay, I stay. I want to make sure I'm just not quoting the song. I was getting ready to start singing it there. Okay, so Ruth replied, don't urge me to leave you or turn back from you. Where you go, I go. Where you stay, I stay. Your people will be my people, and your God will be my God. So Ruth had an out. She could have went, peace out, and, went on her way and, whatever. But she chose to stay with Naomi. And I think that's a huge point before we get to the text, because it's just something that simple, is that she said, you know what, nope, I'm going to stay put. Because as it turns out, Naomi had a lot of her own stuff going on. She was a woman of God, but, she had also been through quite a bit. And so, she had actually got to a point where she said, no, don't call me this anymore, call me that. Because she had, some issues going on. And I just can't help but think, before we get into the text, what would have happened what would have happened to Naomi if Ruth hadn't stayed put? And so we're just going to kind of pick up in Ruth 2, 8 through 16. At this point, Ruth is in the fields. She's gleaning in Boaz's fields, which, as some of you may know, Boaz was basically kind of, like Mr. Little Prince Charming. He had a lot of money, and he was good to go. So Boaz said to Ruth, my daughter, listen to me. Don't go and glean in another field, and don't go away from here. Stay here with the women who work for me. Watch the field where the men are harvesting, and follow along after the women. I have told the men not to lay a hand on you, and whenever you go thirsty, go and get a drink from the water jars the men have filled. At this she bowed down with her face to the ground. She asked him, why have I found such favor in your eyes, and noticed me, a foreigner? Boaz replied, I have been told about you and what you have done for your mother-in-law since the death of your husband, how you left your father and mother and your homeland and came to live with the people you did not know before. May the Lord repay you with what you have done. May you be richly rewarded by the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to take refuge. May I continue to find favor in your eyes, my Lord, she said. You have put me at ease, I can't read today, in speaking kindly to your servant, though I do not have the standing of one of your servants. In the meantime, at mealtime, Boaz said to her, come over here, have some bread, and dip it in wine and vinegar. When she sat down with the harvesters, he offered her roasted grain. She ate all she wanted and had some left over. As she got up to glean, Boaz gave orders to his men. Let her gather among the sheaves, and don't reprimand her. Even pull out some stalks for her from the bundles, and leave them for her to pick up, and don't rebuke her. So Ruth gleaned the fields until evening. Then she threshed the barley she had gathered, and amounted to an ephah. She carried it back to the town, and her mother-in-law saw how much she had gathered. Ruth also brought out and gave her what she had left over, and she had eaten enough. So, from Ruth, doing something as simple as saying, I mean, it's not simple if you look in the terms of it, but in the reality it was, I'm going to go with you. Nope, I'm staying. By doing that, she was able to just bless so many people, and it allowed for Boaz to be able to be a blessing as well. And I think that's huge. And so the point behind this whole message is that, when you live small and do something simple, like amazing things can happen. I think the biggest issue that we face is that so many of us, we're afraid to start anything at all because, we get overwhelmed quickly and we don't necessarily know where to start, right? And so, it's kind of like that old phrase, like, how do you eat an elephant? You do it one bite at a time. So that's where this idea of dream small came from. Like, how are you going to change someone's life? It's going to start with one action at a time. Really that simple. And so, when we get to our song in a couple minutes here, you'll see, it's not rocket science. Everything that we do is for God's kingdom. And in order to advance God's kingdom, it starts with a simple task. It doesn't have to be something crazy. The reality is that if this church wasn't meeting today, we could go somewhere else and we could still bless somebody by simply being there and listening to them. I was watching a show on Fox called The Resident. Anybody watch that? It's pretty awesome if you haven't checked it out yet. And the show, there's kind of like a rogue doctor, and there was a patient who the doctors weren't listening to anything that he was saying. He's like, just fix me, fix me, fix me. But they weren't listening. They were just basically saying, run this test, run that test, run this test, run that test. So this doctor took him to the waiting room, away from all the other doctors, and just listened to what he had to say. And then he said something that kind of struck me. He goes, 90% of diagnoses from doctors can be found if they would just listen to the patient. And I just thought, wow, that's so simple. That's the tiniest thing. This guy, he's a doctor. Sure, he went to school for all these years, and he could really diagnose someone just by actually listening. And I think that's something we're all guilty of, too. We get so busy with everything that we don't want to listen to laughter or anything, So I just thought, that's so powerful. And then I came across another, it was actually a tweet, and it said, the gospel certainly tells us to open our mouths, but at times it also tells us to shut it. So this is kind of a two-part thing. Sometimes dreaming small is as simple as being that support like Ruth was to Naomi, and just being there. And it's talking, it's giving encouragement, because little we know is that Naomi was a woman of God, and the reality is that she probably helped Ruth get to the faith level that she had. And so Naomi ministered to Ruth by talking to her and showing her love. Just like as parents and grandparents, you minister to us to get us to the point that we're all sitting here on Sunday morning. Leaving a legacy behind by starting as small as practicing what we preach and doing what we're going to do. And so I just think that's huge. That's why I played guitar this morning, to be honest with you, because I said, we got to dream small. We got to start somewhere. And so if we just keep sitting back and we're like, I can't do it because I'm not qualified, I'm not qualified, I'm not qualified. The devil loves that term, not qualified, because it stops us from doing anything. My dad was telling me a story about somebody that she just couldn't stop crying the other day, and it turned out that, it was just as simple as, she was pregnant, so her hormones were going crazy. But it's like, good for him because he took a minute to be like, hey, what's going on? I wonder, what if it was something else? And how many people just get so busy because they're too busy at the new plant to go up to someone and say, hey, what's happening? Really, what's what's bothering you right now. So, and then the other part of it is that going back to Ruth and even Boaz in this part, Boaz could have been like, you know what, I got plenty of other workers, forget about you. Nope, you know what, just do your job and that's it. But Boaz went out of his way and he told his workers, you know what, let her take what she wants. Take whatever she needs. Sometimes some of the biggest blessings are some of the things that other people don't see what's going on, and that's perfectly okay because we're not supposed to boast about what we're doing. And so Boaz was a great example of how simple kindness can be and how just being kind to another person in this crazy world can go so far. By Boaz saying, you know what, there's plenty left, take it, go, and don't tell her even that this is going on. He blessed so many people. And sometimes, so that's, might be the challenge. You guys don't want, the awkwardness to come up to someone saying, I know you need this check. I know you need this. So maybe it's as simple as dropping an anonymous letter off in the mail or, dreaming small, something. Like, what can we do to bless someone else? Because the reality is that everything in God's kingdom, everything that we do, there's no clear-cut way to help someone out. There's not. And so, we all just need to think about what's that small thing that we can do that they might not notice right away, but it's going to make a huge impact. And so the other part, I just kind of had this phrase, Chase Rice, one of my favorite country singers, he has a apparel line. It's called Heads Down, Eyes Up. And I did some looking into it to figure out what that meant exactly. And he basically said, set your long-term goal and then forget about it. And then just focus on each individual step to get us there. And so I think that that's a huge thing for us, for not just for our jobs, not just for our careers, not just for, my mom was talking about finances earlier. You know what? If your long-term goal is to be debt-free and have a surplus of money, set a small-term goal. I'm going to put $5 a paycheck away. And I'm going to put an extra $5 on the credit card. And then, you know what? Just plan on doing that. One small little step is going to lead to the financial freedom along the way. We finally got a kitchen. It took a lot of years to get there, but we did. I don't really know where I was going with that. It just felt like I should say it at the time, so you can disregard that piece of it. But the bottom line is that so often, right? Like, it's like, how do you get to the point where you run a marathon or anything? You start 1 mile at a time. How do you lose 20 pounds? You start 1 pound at a time. And what do they tell you? Don't look at the scales because you're going to get discouraged. If I hear one more time from a certain person in this room about how her pants are too tight or I feel better and I don't get it, I'm not losing weight. It's one step at a time. Starts by getting your body healthier, and then, you might just tone up. You might not lose all that weight, but you got to start somewhere. You got to dream small. Start with your small goals, or we're going to be so overwhelmed with kind of everything that's going on in the world. So
I like that your mom's testimony tied really right in, and no sacrifice goes unnoticed by God, regardless of how small it is. No matter what we're talking about, whether it's money or it's a deed or a smile or just taking some extra time out of your day, it's really going to bless somebody, and God is going to notice that.
I want to just kind of end with this little quote here. Gotta find it. I probably just threw it on the ground that way. Hang on. Yep, apparently I didn't save it. Anyways, it talked about that you just never know what you can do by planting a single seed of kindness in someone's heart. What it boils down to, one single seed, one single hello. Something so small, but I think it's something that we shy away from so much because we're so focused on, I'm not qualified to read the Bible. I don't know the Bible well enough. I'm just a member of the congregation, so I don't want to do this. Every time that we feed into one of those excuses, that's the devil winning. And every time that we just walk up to someone, we're like, hey, how's it going? And they might be like, good. But, man, there's something so powerful, isn't it, when you actually take a minute to show someone that you care? So that's where we're at. This song, I just want it to be our closing. It's so powerful because it just talks about, dream small. And I'm going to butcher the lyrics, but for parents, for fathers, it says, taking time to be with your children when the world tells you that you shouldn't. Dream small, do it. That's what it's all about. It's about taking 20 minutes when you're exhausted, to take your child up to the bath or to read a story with them, or whatever, or if you're in the middle of a project and things are frustrating the crap out of you, take 10 minutes and play with your kids or your grandkids, because guess what? They're watching everything that we're doing, and every little impact that we make and do makes a huge impact on the kingdom of God. So let's just close with this song. And it's the one by Josh Wilson, Sherry.
I had it, I don't know.
Yeah, I saw that.